Hey everybody, this is TJR. If this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. If not, welcome back. And we hear 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, this is TJR. If this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. If not, welcome back. And it's time for another edition of CD versus vinyl. I guess you're right, little guy. We really can't call this CD versus vinyl this time around. This time, it's vinyl versus vinyl. In fact, this is really mono versus mono. In fact, not only is this vinyl versus vinyl, but mono versus mono. Mono e mono, with a little bit of stereo thrown in.
Say what?
Let me try to explain this to you here. Some years back, I was able to pick up a copy of the Rolling Stones Let It Bleed anniversary box set. Now, this set included the album in both stereo and mono, and on both vinyl and CD. It also included a hardcover book, a 7-inch, some lithographs, and a poster. I felt it was kind of anemic from an audio standpoint because it didn't contain any demos, outtakes, session tracks, or live tracks. And for that reason, I felt it wasn't justifying its price tag of roughly about 125 bucks. So I passed on it, but I did keep an eye on it. One day, I saw it on a flash sale at Amazon. It was just under 63 bucks, and I picked it up. Since that time, I've never seen it at that price again, though it has been marked down considerably, just on a regular basis at this point in time, in case you're wondering. Now, just the other month, I finally got a copy of the Rolling Stones in mono box set. Now, this was the 2022 repressing of the set that was originally released. I'm thinking roughly about 2019, roughly about a year or so after this, it was released. The only difference being that this repressing was on colored vinyl, the original pressing was on standard black vinyl. I never got the original set when it first came out because of the price, and then I regretted it later, although I did manage to pick up the CD set at a pretty good price, used on the aftermarket. I was gonna have to pass on the repressing too because just cost, money, finances. But unlike the original pressing, which sold out, the Stones in mono repress in color did not sell out, and it went down in price. I eventually bit the bullet and got it, and I did a whole video about it, about how I got it, and there was some drama as well involved with that. But I have to admit, now that I've lived with it for about a month or so, I have not regretted it at all. It has been a great set. I'm very impressed with the audio quality of it. I think it sounds fantastic. But at the time, even before I received that Stones in mono set, I knew, of course, that this album would be part of it, the mono version. And I said to myself, and I said it on the channel too, that the version that comes with the Stones in mono set would sound exactly like the one in this set, because this and the original Stones in mono set were only about a year apart from each other. It's been 5 years since the repress, but even after 5 years, it's going to sound the same. I mean, you're not going to remaster it after 5 years. You're certainly going to remaster it after just a year. And so I figured, okay, they're going to sound exactly the same. There's really not going to be any difference. But last weekend, on a lark, I couldn't help myself. I decided I'm going to compare the mono version of Let It Bleed from the Stones in mono box set with the mono version in this anniversary set. And what I heard really surprised me. And I'm probably going to piss off some audiophiles with what I have to say in this video. But before we piss them all off, I just want to say real quick, if you like this content, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a video. And I also want to thank my Patreon supporters who are helping me to make more videos. If you'd like to be a Patreon supporter, please go to patreon.com/TJR. Patreon supporters receive exclusive weekly videos not available on this channel. Okay, so let's talk about this album and what I heard. So first of all, let me just go ahead and pull out the albums in question here. This is the anniversary box set edition. And it came in this paper sleeve here that is original, reproduces what originally came with the album. The way you can distinguish them, aside from the fact that the version in the box set came with this resealable cover that the anniversary edition doesn't, the inner sleeves on all the Stones in Mono sets were cardboard sleeves, but this one, oddly enough, also reproduces the original sleeve. This is the only one that does that. But the paper, of course, is thicker. It's also glossier and softer. And of course, the record is on red vinyl. So I started out by playing this version first. This is from the Stones in Mono set. And sounded good. I thought, yeah, sounds perfectly fine, nothing wrong with it. And then I played the version from the anniversary box set. I made some notes as I listened, and I'm going to refer to my notes here because I don't want to miss anything here. Hope you don't mind me doing this. I started with the song Gimme Shelter. And everything about this track on the anniversary edition was just better than the recent Stones in Mono repress. The anniversary disc started a little bit quieter than the repress, but by that same token, it also had more room to build up and become louder. Immediately, I began to notice more dynamic range on the anniversary version versus the Stones in Mono version. When the bass guitar hits the first note, there's more punch to it. Additionally, when that low piano key hits that bam on the low, real low note, low E note, it hit with a lot more power. There are also some scattered piano licks from Nicky Hopkins that just come off more aggressively too on the anniversary version versus the recent repress. Now, needless to say, I was really surprised to hear this. And I'm sure I'm going to draw some ire from audiophiles for saying this because according to what I know about this album, there was never truly a mono mix. And that the mono version is just a fold down from stereo. And now here's where I'm really going to piss off the audiophiles because I compared it to the stereo version, which came in the anniversary set. Now, stereo version on its own sounded fine to me. But honestly, this stereo version sounded kind of pale when compared to the anniversary mono set. This just sounded darker and more aggressive overall, whereas this one, when I compared the same song, Gimme Shelter, it just didn't have quite the same punch to it. Again, this is probably going to piss off the audiophiles out there. But I can't deny what I heard. I'd be curious to know if anyone's made a similar comparison. Let me go ahead here and talk about a few more tracks, and this is just mono to mono. Then came the track Love in Vain, which is a quieter track, an acoustic track. So in this case, the Stones in Mono pressing fared a little bit better this time as far as the comparison goes. But even then, on the anniversary disc, the drums hit with a little more force and the slide guitar just felt a little bit more colorful, a little bit more real and more pronounced. The vocal also felt more atmospheric in the anniversary set, I should say. The vocals felt like they were just kind of floating just above the rest of the band, whereas everything else felt just a little bit flatter on the repress from the Stones in Mono set. Lastly, that final chord release that you hear at the end of the track, it had just a little bit more magic to it in the way that the reverb just slaps back at you at the end. So I flipped over to side 2 and I played Midnight Rambler. One of the main things I noticed about Midnight Rambler was just how more impactful the breakdown sounded when Mick Jagger sings a cappella and the band does those big hits on the chords. That just sounded stronger on the anniversary set version. Again, this completely startled me. And another interesting thing I should note is that in many respects, my experience with these two mono versions of Let It Bleed and my experience with the stereo version here that came off my anniversary set kind of mirrors what I experienced with the Rolling Stones Satanic Majesty's Request anniversary set, which I also picked up on the aftermarket because, again, I felt like it was kind of anemic for the price, and I waited to get it for a lot less money. Just like the anniversary set for Let It Bleed, it contained the album on CD and on vinyl, and in both its mono and stereo versions. It came with a bit less gewgaws than the Let It Bleed set. And when I listened to it, when it came to the vinyl, I felt that the mono vinyl sounded better than its stereo counterpart. The CDs I felt kind of about the same about. I thought they both sounded, compared to each other, they both sounded about roughly the same as far as audio quality. I never bothered to compare the CD, though, against the vinyl. Maybe I'll do that at some point. But definitely I preferred the mono vinyl version over the stereo vinyl version. Then later on, I picked up an actual original pressing of Satanic Majesty's Request with, of course, the lenticular cover in stereo. And I liked this vintage stereo copy much better than the one that I got in this anniversary set. I like the stereo copy off the original vintage 60s copy as much as I like the mono version in this. So now I kind of have to wonder how I might feel if I found a vintage mono copy, which I'm not holding out on. It's probably going to be really hard to get an original that sounds, that doesn't sound all scratched up, which this stereo version sounded really good for its age and the wear and tear that I saw on it. I originally got this for the collector's item of just having the original lenticular cover, it being a vintage copy. The fact that it sounded really good with very little snap and crackle was just a bonus for me. I wasn't expecting it to sound that good because it had quite a bit of wear and tear on it. There's definitely a similarity in what I experience with this set as far as stereo and mono were concerned, and what I experienced, with these two versions of Let It Bleed. And the fact that I liked this anniversary mono pressing or repressing of Let It Bleed better than the stereo version in the same set makes me really thinking that I want to find a vintage stereo version of Let It Bleed. Because I have a feeling that I'm going to feel the same way as I did with Satanic Majesty's Request. I liked the mono repressing better than the stereo repressing in the anniversary set. And I have a feeling that when I hear an original stereo Let It Bleed, I'm going to like it just as much as this mono pressing. And I'm going to like it way better than the stereo version that came in this anniversary box set. Now, with all this said, I want to say there's nothing wrong with this stereo repressing. Nothing wrong with it at all. By itself, it sounds fine. It's just when I made the comparisons that I start to hear the difference. I didn't think there was anything wrong with this mono version that came in the Stones in Mono box set. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. Again, until I compared it. Since then, this stereo repressing here from the Stones in mono has basically been put back in the Stones in mono box, which is separate from where I keep the records that I'm always going to be listening to and playing. And my go-to version is, for now, this mono version from the anniversary set, because I like this better than the stereo version from the anniversary set. And again, I know that's going to piss off some audiophiles because this is supposed to be just a mono fold down. And yeah, I guess it is, but I can't deny what my ears told me. I've always said trust your ears more than you should trust critics or anyone on YouTube. And I'll say that about me too. Always trust your ears first. I see so many people that listen to people on YouTube and take their word for it. I mean, I'm grateful for the people who want to hear what I have to say, and I hope it's helpful for you. But at the end of the day, I've always said you have to trust what your ears say more than what my ears say. I appreciate you being here. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, always trust what your ears tell you more than anybody else, you know. It's the same thing with, you know, like stereo equipment. So many people get so arrogant about this topic. It's why I don't like audiophiles. And to quote Andrew Robinson, who talks about audio gear on his channel, the only person who has to like your system is you, nobody else. I love that he says that all the time. And I would say the same thing. You have to trust, at the end of the day, you have to trust what your ears tell you. So if you've had the opportunity to compare this mono version from the anniversary set to the mono version in the Stones in mono box set, let me know if you experienced the same thing. Because to me, the difference was really staggering. And let me know what your thoughts are on the stereo version from the anniversary set, or a modern repressing. Again, not fair to compare it to the vintage. I have a feeling when I hear the vintage version in stereo, I'm going to immediately want to put that right alongside this. And again, I'm not holding my breath that I'll find a vintage mono copy, because that's going to be harder than a vintage stereo copy that sounds good. So I'm not really holding my breath. Yeah. So right now, this is my go-to version. This mono version from the anniversary box set. This is my go-to as far as I'm concerned. The stereo version, aside from this demonstration here, the stereo version, sit up straight, guy. The stereo version lives here now. I'm just going to go for this mono version instead until I find that vintage stereo version, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, though, so yeah, kind of an experience that I just wasn't expecting. But let me know what your experience has been. And that's it for this video. I really want to thank you for hanging out. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. Everybody, thank you so much for watching, and hope you all stay safe and healthy. We'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.